This might be the most interesting lens that I've got my hands on in a long time. And the reason is because of this switch here. But before we get into that, let's go take some pictures and see how the optics work in this lens. Now the lens that I've just been taking photos with is the Yongnuo 50mm 1.8. So I'm really impressed with how this lens performs. I mean, I do think that most lenses are usually incredible these days. I haven't had a lens where I'm thinking, this is sketchy. Even the cheaper lenses I've used lately really pack a punch. But what's different about this lens? Now it's a 50mm with a 1.8 aperture. So if you use this lens on an APS-C sensor, you're roughly shooting the equivalent of a 75 on a full frame. The maximum aperture is f16. It weighs 387 grams. And the outer shell is aviation aluminium or aluminum alloy. But let's jump into what I think is really cool and unique about this lens. So at the beginning I mentioned this switch. Now this switch has 1 and 2 on it in Roman numerals. At the moment it's on switch 1, which controls your aperture. Now when you move it to switch 2, it controls your focusing. What's even cooler about all of that than just a switch is that when you have it in the first position, which reads out your aperture, it reads it here on this OLED screen. And as you can see here, you can change, by using the rubber focus ring, you can change the aperture and you can see the change and see clearly what aperture you're on. So when you look down and you change it to the preferred f-stop, you then use the switch to the second position, which then lets you focus if you want to use this as a manual lens, especially if you set up your camera in that function. However, this is also an autofocus lens. So you can just have it on aperture priority mode, change the aperture as you go, and shoot away to your heart's content. I like to do both, and that is why I really love the functionality of this lens. I guess a little bit it's kind of a quirk, a new feature to play with. I'm not trying to say that photography gets stale, but something like this can then excite the process of taking photos. And certainly with this, I was kind of like, this is a cool little feature. Like I said, you can just read the aperture without having to look at your screen. I think that's really cool. I think that's really good. I think that's kind of a little ingenious. Not everyone's going to like this because I think a lot of photographers out there or filmmakers, they kind of would like to look at their screen and see all of their information in one kind of place. You can still do that. That does not limit you. This is just an extra added quirk. I also can appreciate that some people are used to using a clicked aperture ring or also using the dial on the front or back. Look, each to their own. That is your preference. But if you want to try something new, I do think that this lens is very cool. I don't think it's the best looking lens in the world, but I also don't think it's like, you know, ugly, except for the CE marking here. I would really prefer that to look a little bit more like the Fuji lenses, where it's kind of hollowed out or stenciled a bit more. It's just a bit too bold and frankly a little bit ugly on this lens. So that's something I would prefer not to have. And the Yongnuo brand is okay. It's just, look, I'm not too shallow about what things look like, but if I had any discrepancies, I guess, yeah, that would be it. I really do think that some of these third-party lenses are starting to compete with some of the Fuji big boys that we all know and love. Okay, it probably isn't quite matching, but for some of the features that it has, and probably where most of your photography might lie, social media, YouTube, places like that, this might be a really good buy for someone who wants to just, take photos for those places. I think if you're a serious professional photographer, I still think actually you could get away with this. However, I still think Fuji lenses are the best, especially if you own a Fuji camera. But yeah, I'm impressed with the sharpness of it. I'm impressed with the functionality of it, particularly. When it comes to gear, I'm really starting to understand that it's about the shooter. It's about the artist. It's about the guy or the girl behind the camera. Back here, I've got a lens that's only worth about $75. That lens I have played with more than any one of those lenses this year. It's about an experience, and it's about how it makes you feel and how you can convey your photography to the world. So this here lens comes in at $320. However, there is 17% off. You can now get it for roughly $264. Is it worth it? Yeah, it sure is. Compared to some other 50mm out there, I think this really challenges it. Personally, I don't own an exact 50mm, but I do own the 56mm Sigma, which has an aperture of 1.4. That lens is great and small and compact, and Sigma make great lenses in my opinion. I've not heard of Yongnuo, but I'm definitely going to be sure to keep my ear to the ground for any new releases. If this is too expensive for you, they do have another 50mm which might be more of interest to you. It's much smaller and there's a discount on that lens too, and that comes in at $117. So maybe that might be worth checking out. These are very affordable lenses for the quality that you are getting. So look, don't take my word for it. Go try it out yourself. I've left a link in the description with all my other gear that I use. If you have any further questions and things that I haven't covered with this lens, drop them in the comments. And as always, let's make some waves, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.